The morning sun rose over New Busan just like any other day. The farming colony had been peaceful for 23 years. Children played in the fields while their parents worked the rich soil. Nobody expected that this Tuesday would be their last normal day. Admiral Han Wu stood on the observation deck of the defense station floating high above the planet. He drank his morning coffee and watched the cargo ships move between the surface and space. New Busan grew enough food to feed 5 worlds. The people were proud of their work. "Sir, we have something strange on the sensors," called Lieutenant Park from the control room. Han Wu walked over to look at the screens. 3 dots appeared at the edge of their scanning range, then 6 dots, then 20. In 5 minutes, the sensors showed over 300 unknown ships. "Get me Captain Kim Do-hyun," Han Wu ordered. Kim commanded the colony's small defense fleet of 12 patrol ships. They were never meant to fight a real war. Down on the planet, Dr. Park Min was teaching his daughter how to plant seeds when his emergency communicator buzzed. As head of the medical center, he always had to be ready. But this message was different. All civilian leaders report to emergency stations immediately. This is not a drill. Park Min's wife, Lee So-young, ran the planet's communication center. She was already at work when the first alien message came through. The voice was cold and mechanical. "Humans of this world, you will surrender immediately. Your biological resources will be harvested for the good of the Velthak Collective. Resistance will result in total processing of your population." So-young's hands shook as she typed the emergency message to Earth. It would take 6 days for the signal to reach home. 6 days for Earth to even know they were under attack. Captain Kim Do-hyun launched his 12 ships as fast as he could. His pilots were good, but they had never faced anything like this. The alien ships looked like giant crystals floating through space. They moved in perfect formation and did not respond to any communication. "All ships stay together," Kim ordered over the radio. "Protect the evacuation ships. Every minute we buy saves more lives." The first alien weapon hit his lead ship. It did not explode like human weapons. Instead, the ship simply stopped working. Its hull turned into the same crystal material as the alien ships. The pilot inside was trapped in crystal too. On the planet, Park Min organized the evacuation of the medical center. Thousands of people crowded into emergency shelters and escape pods. He helped load children into ships while explosions lit up the sky above them. "Daddy, what's happening?" his daughter asked. "We have to go on a trip," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Remember what Mommy taught you about the emergency games?" The evacuation ships lifted off as fast as they could load people. But there were only 50 ships for over 2 million people. They could not save everyone. Admiral Han Wu watched Kim Do-hyun's brave fight from the defense station. The 12 human ships darted between the alien vessels like tiny fish around sharks. They could not hurt the crystal ships, but they kept drawing fire away from the evacuation craft. "Sir, the aliens are landing on the surface," reported Lieutenant Park. "They're releasing some kind of gas." Through the telescopes, Han Wu saw the horrible truth. Where the alien gas touched the green fields, everything turned to crystal. Plants, animals, buildings, all of it became the same glowing material. And the people caught in the gas stopped moving and became crystal statues. Engineer Choi Jin was in the deep bunkers under the capital city. His job was to keep the power running and send messages to Earth. The bunker was supposed to be safe from anything, but the alien gas seeped through the walls like it was not even there. "This is New Busan calling Earth," he spoke into his microphone as the walls around him began to turn crystal. "The aliens are not just taking our world, they are taking our people. Tell Earth, tell them we held the line as long as we could." Captain Kim Do-hyun's ship was the last one fighting. His 11 friends were now crystal statues floating in Natiu space. His engines were failing and his weapons were empty. But he kept flying, drawing the alien ships away from one last evacuation transport. "This is Captain Kim to any human ship. I am making my final run. Tell my family I love them. Tell Earth that New Busan died fighting." He turned his damaged ship toward the largest alien vessel and pushed his engines to maximum power. The explosion was bright enough to see from the planet's surface. It did not destroy the alien ship, but it left a crack in its crystal hull. Lee So-young stayed at her communication post until the very end. She sent updates to Earth every few minutes, even as the crystal gas filled her building. Her last message was simple. They are monsters. Do not let them do this to other worlds. Dr. Park Min got his daughter onto one of the last evacuation ships. He kissed her goodbye and promised to follow on the next transport. But there was no next transport. He spent his final hours helping other families say goodbye to their children. The aliens worked with terrible efficiency. Their crystal gas covered the entire planet in 18 hours. Cities became crystal sculptures, farms became crystal gardens, people became crystal statues with looks of fear frozen on their faces. Admiral Hanwoo's defense station was the last human position to fall. He gathered his remaining crew in the command center and armed the self-destruct system. We will not give them our technology, he told his people, and we will make sure Earth knows what happened here. The station's explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. It sent one final message burst toward Earth with all the data they had collected about the aliens. Engineer Choi Jin lived long enough to see the crystal creeping up his legs. He used his last minutes to hide data storage devices around the bunker. Maybe someone would find them someday and learn the truth about what the Velthak Collective really wanted. The few evacuation ships that escaped carried only 50,000 people from a world of over 2 million. They jumped to faster than light speed and ran toward Earth, carrying the terrible news. New Busan had been humanity's most peaceful colony. Its people grew food and raised families and never hurt anyone. Now it was a crystal tomb orbiting a yellow star. The Velthak ships moved on to scan for other human worlds. On the dead crystal planet, the wind blew through empty cities. The alien gas was gone, but its work was complete. Every living thing had been turned into crystal and loaded onto the Velthak ships. The aliens called it harvesting. Humans would call it something else. The morning sun still rose over New Busan, but now it shone on a world of glass and silence. The playgrounds were crystal sculptures. The farms were crystal fields. The people were gone. But space carries sound farther than the aliens knew. The final messages from New Busan were already racing toward Earth at the speed of light. In 6 days, humanity would learn what had happened to their children, and then the Velthak Collective would learn what it meant to make an enemy of the human race. The crystal planet spun in silence, waiting for Judgment Day. 6 days after New Busan fell, the emergency signal reached Earth. The message burst came through the deep space communication array at exactly 3:47 in the morning, Geneva time. The duty officer, a young woman named Kim Soo-jin, read the first few lines and immediately called her supervisor. Within an hour, the message was on President Yoon Hanul's desk. She read it 3 times before she believed what she was seeing. An entire human world had been destroyed. Over 2 million people were dead or captured. The attackers called themselves the Velthak Collective and treated humans like cattle. President Yoon called an emergency session of the United Terran Assembly. Representatives from all human worlds gathered in the Great Hall within 6 hours. Some came in person, others appeared as holograms from distant colonies. All of them wanted answers. "How do we know this is real?" asked the representative from Mars. "It sounds impossible." Fleet Admiral Park Seung-ho stood up from his seat. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars from the border wars 20 years ago. Everyone respected his opinion on military matters. "The data checks out," he said, in a quiet voice. "We lost contact with New Busan 6 days ago. The survivor ships are on their way here. They will arrive in 8 days with more details." Dr. Lim Ye-jin, Earth's top expert on alien life, had been studying the limited information all night. She looked tired but determined when she spoke to the assembly. "The biological data is disturbing," she said. "These Velthak are not like anything in our databases. They appear to convert living matter into some kind of crystal structure. The process preserves the victims but makes them into resources." A representative from the outer colonies stood up. "What kind of resources?" "The worst kind," Dr. Lim replied. "They use the converted beings as living computers. The crystallized victims remain conscious but under complete control. It's slavery of the mind and body together." The assembly hall fell silent. Representatives looked at each other with growing horror. This was not just war. This was something worse than extinction. President Yoon called for a vote. All in favor of declaring a state of emergency and mobilizing the defense forces? Every dia hand went up. Fleet Admiral Park Sung-ho presented his plan the next day. It was called Operation Righteous Thunder, and it was the most ambitious military project in human history. We will convert every shipyard in human space to military production, he explained to the Defense Committee. Every mining station will make weapons. Every civilian transport will be upgraded for war. General Song Min-ho, head of military production, had run the numbers all night. Admiral, what you're suggesting would require us to build 700,000 warships. The cost would bankrupt every human world. Then we'll be bankrupts who are still alive, Park replied. The alternative is becoming crystal statues in alien ships. The plan was insane by any normal measure. Humanity had never built more than 10,000 warships at one time. The proposed fleet would be 70 times larger than anything they had ever attempted. But the survivors from New Busan arrived 3 days ahead of schedule, and their testimony changed everything. Captain Nam Yuri was the senior officer among the survivors. She had commanded one of the evacuation ships and watched her world die from space. When she spoke to the assembly, her voice was steady but her eyes were hard. They made one mistake, she said. They left witnesses. She showed the assembly video recordings from the evacuation ships. The representatives watched crystal gas turn cities into glass sculptures. They saw human beings freeze in mid-step as the alien weapon touched them. They watched children become crystal statues in their parents' arms. These beings have done this before, Captain Nam continued. Our computers found references to 47 other species in their broadcasts. All of them were harvested the same way. All of them are gone. The vote to approve Operation Righteous Thunder was unanimous. Dr. Lim Ye-jin worked with the survivor data to understand the enemy better. What she found made her sick. The Veltak Collective was over 1,000 years old. They had perfected the art of turning entire civilizations into resources. They keep the victims conscious, she reported to the military leaders. The crystallized beings remain aware but helpless. They become living computers that can think and feel but cannot act. Some of them have been enslaved for centuries. General Song Min-ho took charge of the largest production effort in human history. Within weeks, factories that made household items were producing plasma cannons. Luxury cruise ships were stripped down and fitted with missile launchers. Even toys and clothing factories were converted to make parts for warships. The people of Earth and its colonies worked like their lives depended on it, because they did. 12-hour work shifts became normal. Retirement age was forgotten. Children, old enough to hold tools, worked alongside their grandparents. Engineer Oh Dong-min led a team designing new weapons specifically for fighting crystal ships. They studied the wreckage data from Captain Kim Do-hyun's final battle and found something interesting. The crystal hulls vibrate at specific frequencies, he explained to Admiral Park. If we can match those frequencies exactly, we might be able to shatter their ships like glass. The technical breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kwon Tae-young was a music teacher before the war began. Now he worked with the weapons team, using his knowledge of sound and vibration to crack the alien technology. It's like tuning a guitar, he said excitedly. Every crystal has a natural frequency where it breaks. We just need to find the right note. Captain Seo Ji-won led the dangerous job of scouting toward Veltak space. Her ships were fast and quiet, designed to gather information without being caught. Her pilots volunteered for missions they might not return from. The aliens are moving closer to human space, she reported after each mission. They have identified at least 6 more human colonies as targets. We need to hit them before they can harvest anyone else. Admiral Cho Yun-hai was given command of the growing Retribution fleet. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, the dreadnought New Busan's Vengeance, and watched hundreds of new ships join the formation every day. How many do we have now? She asked her aide. 600,000 and counting, Admiral. The shipyards are still working at maximum speed. The Admiral nodded. It's not enough until it's over. President Yoon Ha-neul addressed the human worlds every week to report on their progress. Her speeches were broadcast to every colony, every space station, every mining operation in human space. "We are not building this fleet for conquest," she said in one famous speech. "We are building it for justice. The Velthak Collective believes they can treat us like animals. They will learn the difference between animals and humans." The message was clear across all human worlds. This was not just about revenge for New Busan. This was about survival. If humanity did not stop the Velthak now, every human world would become a crystal tomb. 18 months after New Busan fell, the Retribution fleet reached its target size. 700,000 warships floated in formations around Earth and its sister worlds. It was the largest military force ever assembled by any species in known galactic history. Admiral Park Sung-ho stood before the fleet commanders in the final briefing. Behind him, a holographic display showed the route to Velthak space. 27 light-years away, the crystal ships waited for them. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "we go to war not because we love fighting, but because we love peace. We carry death to those who would enslave us, so that freedom can live." The Retribution fleet launched on a Tuesday morning, exactly 2 years after New Busan fell. 700,000 ships turned away from Earth and jumped into faster-than-light travel. They carried the hopes and anger of humanity toward the stars. Behind them, the factories kept working. If 700,000 ships were not enough, humanity would build 700,000 more. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when someone killed human children. The Retribution fleet traveled through hyperspace for 3 weeks before reaching the outer edge of Velthak territory. 700,000 human ships moved in perfect formation through the darkness between stars. Admiral Park Sung-ho commanded, from his flagship, the super dreadnought Terra's Wrath. "Exit hyperspace in 30 minutes, reported his navigation officer. Park Sung-ho nodded and opened communications to the entire fleet. "All ships, prepare for combat operations. We are about to enter enemy space. Remember why we are here." Scout, Captain Jang Hye-rim and her fast reconnaissance ships arrived first. They dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Velthak space and immediately began scanning for enemy activity. What they found was worse than anyone had expected. "Command, this is Scout 1, Jang reported. "I'm seeing evidence of recent harvesting, operations on at least 43 worlds. The crystal formations are still warm." Through her ship's telescopes, Jang saw the horrible truth. Entire star systems had been turned into crystal farms. Planets that once supported life now glowed. With the cold light of alien technology, billions of beings had been processed into living resources. "How recent?" asked Admiral Park Sung-ho. "Some of these operations finished within the last few months, sir. They're accelerating their harvesting schedule." The main fleet emerged from hyperspace in 6 different locations simultaneously. The Velthak border patrol ships detected them immediately, but they were not prepared for the sheer scale of human response. 300 alien vessels faced 700,000 human ships. Commodore An Jong-soo led the first attack wave against a Velthak supply convoy. His orders were simple: test the new weapons and deny the enemy resources. His squadron of 5,000 ships surrounded 50 alien vessels near a mining asteroid. "All ships, target the convoy. Let's see if our new toys work," An ordered. The crystal-cracking weapons fired for the first time in real combat. Beams of precisely tuned energy hit the alien ships at their natural resonance frequency. The results were spectacular. Crystal hulls that had seemed indestructible vibrated, cracked, and shattered into millions of glowing fragments. "Direct hit," called his weapons officer. "Enemy convoy is destroyed." But something else happened that surprised everyone. When the crystal ships broke apart, thousands of tiny objects floated free from the wreckage. They were not debris. They were people. "Medical teams to rescue positions," An ordered. "We have survivors in the wreckage." The rescued beings were from dozens of different species. They had been held in crystal stasis for years, decades, some for over a century, all of them were alive but confused and terrified. The human medical teams worked frantically to help them recover. Dr. Hong Soo-young, the fleet's chief medical officer, examined the rescued prisoners aboard her hospital ship. What she found changed everything they thought they knew about the war. These beings aren't just prisoners, she reported to Admiral Park. They're a library. The crystals preserve not just their bodies, but their memories, their knowledge, their entire cultures. Major Ryu Soo-jin led her Marines in the first boarding operation against a captured Velthak ship. Her soldiers moved carefully through crystal corridors that hummed with alien energy. The ship was like a living prison, with thousands of crystallized beings built into the walls. "How do we free them?" asked Sergeant Kim Won-ho. "Very carefully," Ryu replied. "Dr. Hong says the reversal process has to be precise, or we'll kill them." The Marines worked for hours, using specially designed tools to extract crystallized prisoners from the alien ship's structure. Each rescue required delicate work to avoid damaging the victims during the extraction process. Intelligence Officer Moon Jae-sung made contact with resistance fighters on several Velthak-controlled worlds. The news spread quickly through the galaxy's underground networks. The humans had arrived with the largest fleet anyone had ever seen. "How many ships?" asked KEF resistance leader Teklon through the encrypted communication channel. 700,000, Moon replied. There was a long silence. "That number cannot be correct." "It is correct, and we're just getting started." The psychological impact of the first battle spread through Velthak space faster than the human ships themselves. For 1,000 years, the collective had faced no meaningful resistance. Now they were losing entire convoys to weapons they didn't understand. Captain Lee Min-kyung commanded a squadron of specialized world-breaker ships designed to reverse Velthak terraforming. Her vessels carried equipment that could crack the biome crystal formations covering conquered planets and restore them to natural life. Beginning restoration operations on Kef Prime, she reported as her ships took position around the dead world. The process was slow but dramatic. Energy beams designed to break crystal at specific frequencies struck the planet's surface. The alien formations cracked and dissolved, revealing soil and water that had been preserved beneath the crystal shell. "Life signs are returning," reported her science officer. "Plants are growing through the cracks." Colonel Kim Sang-ho led ground forces in brutal combat on Velthak city ships. These massive vessels were like floating cities filled with crystal, technology, and imprisoned populations. Fighting inside them was like battling through a living nightmare. "Move carefully," he told his troops as they advanced through glowing corridors. Every wall might have people trapped inside it. The urban warfare was unlike anything humans had experienced. The Velthak defenders could control their ship's environment, changing the layout of passages and rooms at will. But human adaptability proved stronger than alien planning. The Velthak collective began to respond to the human attacks. Harvester Prime Kethaval, their supreme commander, gathered his main battle fleet to crush what he assumed was a desperate human raid. "These mammals show more resistance than expected," he reported to the collective council. "But they are still just meat. We will process their fleet and add their ships to our resources." What Kethaval didn't understand was that he was facing more than just ships. He was facing the combined fury of an entire species that had been pushed beyond its breaking point. The human fleet split into multiple task forces, each targeting different parts of Velthak space simultaneously. Admiral Cho Eun-hai led 60,000 ships against the Velthara production facilities. Admiral Song Ki-jun took 80,000 ships to hit their supply lines. Admiral Park Ju-young commanded 100,000 ships attacking their border fortresses. "They can't be everywhere at once," Park Sung-ho told his staff. "We'll hit them so many places they won't know where to focus their defense." Captain Nam Yuri, the survivor from New Busan, led a special task force targeting Velthak research facilities. Her mission was personal: find the technology to reverse the crystallization process and free as many victims as possible. "Every person we rescue is a victory," she told her crews. "Every life we save proves that the aliens are not all-powerful." The first major fleet engagement came when 50,000 human ships encountered a Velthak battle group near the Zethkar system. The alien commander, Harvester General Volthek, was confident his 3,000 ships could destroy the human raiders. Fire crystal disruptors, he ordered. The Velthak weapons that had destroyed Captain Kim Do-hyun's ships 2 years ago fired at the human fleet. But these ships were different. They carried shields tuned to block the crystallization effect and armor designed to resist alien weapons. Minimal damage, reported Admiral Cho Yun-hai. Return fire with resonance weapons. The human response was devastating. 50,000 ships firing crystal-cracking weapons turned the Velthak battle group into glittering dust in minutes. Volthek's confident advance became a desperate retreat. But the real victory was what they found in the wreckage. Thousands more prisoners, including some from species that had been considered extinct for centuries. Each rescue operation revealed the true scope of Velthak crimes. Dr. Yang Seung-min coordinated the psychological warfare campaign. Every Velthak facility destroyed carried the same message broadcast on all frequencies. This is for New Busan. This is for the KEF. This is for everyone you stole. We are coming for all of you. The messages were not just threats, they were promises. The human fleet moved through Velthak space like a storm, striking everywhere and retreating to strike again. Traditional alien tactics failed against human unpredictability. Shipwright Bae Insu, now commanding a mobile shipyard, set up operations and captured Velthak space. His crews began converting alien technology for human use, turning crystal weapons against their creators. How long to refit their ships for our use? Asked Admiral Park. Give me a week per ship, Bae replied. But sir, some of these vessels are too damaged by what they've done. The crystal matrix is saturated with death. We should scrap them rather than try to save them. The campaign continued for months. Human task forces struck deeper into Velthak space, liberating world after world and rescuing millions of crystallized prisoners. Each victory revealed more about the enemy's crimes and strengthened humanity's resolve. The Velthak Collective, facing the first serious resistance in their history, began to fracture. Some groups wanted to negotiate. Others called for total war. A few even tried to flee beyond the galaxy. But there was nowhere to run. 700,000 human ships controlled the space lanes and more ships arrived from D. The final battle began at dawn over Velthera Prime. Though dawn was a human concept that had no meaning in the eternal twilight of space. 700,000 human ships surrounded the Velthak homeworld like a metal storm cloud. Their weapons, charged and ready for the largest military engagement in galactic history. Admiral Park Sung-ho stood on the bridge of Terra's Wrath and studied the enemy defenses. The planet below was ringed with massive crystal structures that reached into space like frozen lightning. Each structure was a monument to genocide, built from the crystallized remains of conquered worlds. Final weapons check, he ordered. All ships report readiness. The response came back from 700,000 captains, ready for battle, ready to end this war, ready to make the Velthak Collective pay for every crime they had committed across 1,000 years of conquest. Harvester Prime. Kethval watched the human fleet approach from his command center deep beneath Velthara Prime. The sheer scale of the armada was beyond anything his species had ever imagined possible. Stars were blotted out by the dark shapes of human warships. Activate all planetary defenses, he ordered. Deploy the final protocol immediately. But his orders met resistance for the first time in his reign. Many Velthak commanders had lost faith in their leader's ability to win this war. Some openly questioned whether total destruction was better than negotiated surrender. Prime, the humans are broadcasting a message, reported his communications officer. The message came from Admiral Park Sung-ho himself, transmitted on all frequencies so every being in the system could hear it. To the Velthak Collective and all, prisoners held within their space. This is Admiral Park Sung-ho of the Terran Retribution Fleet. We have come to settle the debt for New Busan and every other world you have destroyed. Surrender now and face justice, or face annihilation. You have 1 hour to decide. The hour passed in tense silence. Below on the planet, Velthak civilians huddled in their crystal cities, while their leaders debated. In space, human crews made final preparations for battle. Across the galaxy, liberated worlds held their breath and waited. At exactly 1 hour after the ultimatum, Kethval transmitted his response. We reject your offer, mammals. The collective has ruled this galaxy for 1,000 years. We will not bow to inferior species. Admiral Park Sung-ho closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of the children who had died on New Busan. Then he opened the command channel to his fleet. All ships, begin final assault. Show them the price of genocide. 700,000 ships opened fire simultaneously. The space around Velthera Prime lit up like a newborn star as plasma cannons, missile launchers, and resonance weapons fired at maximum power. The crystal structures around the planet began to crack and shatter under the massive bombardment. Admiral Cho Yun-hai led the assault on the primary defense ring from her flagship New Busan's Vengeance. Her ships targeted the largest crystal monuments with their specialized frequency weapons, turning symbols of oppression into clouds of glittering dust. "Direct hit on the Kef Memorial," reported her weapons officer. "The structure is collapsing." Each falling monument released thousands of crystallized prisoners who had been built into its structure. Human rescue ships darted through the debris field, collecting survivors who had been trapped for decades or centuries. Captain Lee Min-kyung commanded a squadron attacking the planet's surface installations. Her world-breaker ships fired restoration, beams that cracked the crystal formations covering entire continents, revealing the original landscape beneath. "Velthara Prime is returning to natural state," she reported. "I'm seeing forests and oceans for the first time in 1,000 years." But the most important target was Kethval himself. Captain Nam Yuri, the survivor from New Busan, led a strike force directly toward the Velthak Command Center. Her mission was personal. She would be the one to end this war. "All ships follow me in," she ordered. "Today we finish what they started." Her squadron dove through the planetary defenses, dodging crystal beam weapons and automated defense systems. The other human task forces kept the bulk of the Velthak fleet busy, while Nam Yuri's ships penetrated to the planet's core. The fighting on the surface was just as intense. Colonel Kim Sang-ho led marine assault teams into the underground command complexes where Kethval had his headquarters. His soldiers fought through crystal corridors filled with automated defenses and desperate Velthak warriors. "Keep moving," he shouted to his troops as they advanced through a hallway lined with crystallized prisoners. "Every minute we delay, more innocents suffer." Major Ryu Soo-jin's Marines specialized in prisoner rescue operations. As the human assault cracked open Velthak facilities, her teams worked frantically to extract and revive as many trapped beings as possible. "Medical teams to Sector 7, she called over the radio. "We found a prison complex with over 10,000 prisoners from the Zeltar civilization." Dr. Hong Soo-young worked in her mobile medical centers, treating rescued prisoners as fast as her teams could bring them in. Each successful revival was a victory against the Velthak system of slavery and genocide. "This one's been crystallized for 80 years, she told her assistant while working on a Kef survivor. "But the preservation process is perfect. She'll make a full recovery." The battle raged for 18 hours. Human ships systematically destroyed every Velthak defensive position, while rescue teams liberated millions of prisoners from crystal storage facilities. The 1,000-year empire crumbled under the sustained assault. Intelligence officer Moon Jae-sung coordinated with resistance fighters across the planet as they emerged from hiding to join the battle. Species that had been considered extinct for centuries appeared with weapons and information to help the human assault. "The Nethka resistance has secured the eastern crystal farms," he reported. "They're freeing prisoners and providing safe corridors for our ground teams." As the battle turned decisively in humanity's favor, different Velthak factions began surrendering separately. Some commanders abandoned Kethval and tried to negotiate with human forces. Others simply stopped fighting and waited for capture. The Xiao end came when Captain Nam Yuri's assault team breached the final defenses around Kethval's command center. The Harvester Prime stood alone in his crystal throne room, surrounded by the monuments to his conquests. "I offer you the chance to surrender," Nam Yuri said, her weapon trained on the alien leader. "The same chance you gave to New Busan." Kethval looked at the human officer with genuine confusion. "You could simply kill me. Why offer mercy to your enemy?" "Because we're not you," Nam Yuri replied. "We came here for justice, not genocide." Kethval's surrender was broadcast across the galaxy. The Velthak Collective, which had seemed invincible for 1,000 years, had fallen to a species they had considered inferior. The age of crystal tyranny was over. Reconstruction Coordinator Lim Dae-ho arrived with the first wave of humanitarian ships. His massive task was to help 47 liberated species rebuild their civilizations and heal from centuries of slavery. "Where do we start?" asked Admiral Park Sung-ho. "With New Busan," Lim replied. "We restore the first world they took, and we work outward from there." The restoration of New Busan became a symbol of hope for the entire galaxy. Human engineering teams worked alongside liberated species to crack the crystal formations and restore the planet's natural environment. Within months, green fields covered the world where crystal farms had stood. Admiral Han Woo, who had witnessed New Busan's fall from the defense station, returned to plant the first tree in the memorial garden. Each of the 2.3 million humans lost had their name carved in quantum crystal, eternal and unbreakable. "They died as farmers and teachers and children," he said at the dedication ceremony. "But they will be remembered as the spark that lit the fire of galactic liberation." President Yoon Ha-neul addressed the newly formed Galactic Liberation Council from the halls of New Geneva on Earth. Representatives from dozens of species sat together for the first time in centuries, free to determine their own futures. "Came not as conquerors, but as liberators," she said in her famous speech. "We showed the galaxy that some lines cannot be crossed, some crimes cannot be forgiven, and some species will never bow to tyranny." The war crimes trials took years to complete. Cathval and his top commanders faced justice for genocide, slavery, and crimes against consciousness itself. The trials were broadcast across the galaxy, so every species could see that the age of impunity was over. Dr. Kwon Tae-young, the music teacher who had helped crack the crystal frequency codes, established the Galactic Symphony Orchestra. Musicians from dozens of species played together, creating beauty where there had once been only the silence of the grave. The Retribution fleet was gradually decommissioned as the threat ended. Most ships were converted back to peaceful purposes: cargo haulers, passenger liners, research vessels. But humanity kept some shipyards active and crews trained just in case. General Song Min-ho oversaw the conversion of war factories back to civilian production. The industrial capacity that had built 700,000 warships in 18 months now focused on rebuilding the liberated worlds. "How long to restore all 47 species to their pre-conquest state?" asked President Yoon. "Conservative estimate, 50 years, Song replied. "But sir," Harvester Prime Keithovel studied the tactical displays in his command center with growing concern. Red markers showed human attacks across dozens of star systems. His 1,000-year empire was burning, and these mammals seemed to be everywhere, at once. "How many ships do they have?" he demanded from his intelligence advisor. "Our estimates range from 500,000 to over 700,000, Prime," came the nervous reply. Keithovel struck the advisor with a crystal appendage. "Impossible. No species builds fleets that large. Our data shows humans had fewer than 10,000 ships before this war began." But the evidence was undeniable. Every Velthak patrol that encountered human forces reported being outnumbered by thousands to one. Supply convoys vanished. Border stations went silent. Entire harvesting operations were destroyed overnight. The Collective Council met in emergency session for the first time in 3 centuries. Representatives from across Velthak space gathered to discuss this unprecedented threat to their empire. "These humans fight differently than other species," reported war harvester Zekmol. "They do not seek territory or resources. They seem motivated purely by revenge." "Revenge for what?" asked Council Prime Velthar. "A single colony world called New Busan. We harvested it 2 years ago. Standard operation, no complications." The council chamber fell silent. The idea that any species would mobilize their entire civilization over one lost world was beyond Velthak comprehension. In their view, worlds were resources to be used, not homes to be defended. Meanwhile, Admiral Cho Yun-hai led 50,000 human ships toward the Crystal Nebula, where intelligence reported the largest Velthak fleet concentration. Her mission was to break the back of their military before they could reorganize. Enemy fleet detected, reported her sensor officer. Approximately 30,000 ships in defensive formation. Cho Yun-hai smiled grimly. The aliens still thought, in terms of traditional fleet sizes. They were about to learn what 700,000 ships meant in practical terms. Signal the fleet. Begin attack formation 7. Let's show them what overwhelming force looks like. The Battle of the Crystal Nebula began at 0800 hours, ship time. 30,000 Velthak vessels faced 50,000 human ships among the glowing gas clouds that gave the region its name. The aliens had chosen the location for its defensive advantages, but they hadn't planned for this scale of attack. Harvester Admiral Tothran commanded the Velthak forces from his flagship, a massive crystal dreadnought that had conquered 40 worlds. He was confident that his superior positioning and proven crystal technology would defeat these troublesome mammals. Fire all disruptor arrays, he ordered. Convert their ships to our use. The crystal beams that had turned human ships into glass at New Busan fired across space. But these human vessels were different. They carried shields specifically designed to block crystallization effects and armor that resisted alien weapons. Minimal effect, Admiral, reported his weapons coordinator. The human ships are not converting. Before Tothran could respond, the human counterattack began. 50,000 ships fired their resonance weapons simultaneously. The precisely tuned energy beams struck Velthak hulls at their natural breaking frequency. The results were catastrophic for the aliens. Ships that had seemed indestructible shattered like glass statues dropped on stone floors. Crystal hulls vibrated apart at the molecular level, releasing clouds of glowing fragments and thousands of freed prisoners. Impossible, whispered Tothran, as his fleet disintegrated around him. Captain Lee Min-kyung led her Worldbreaker squadron against the Velthak terraforming stations in the nearby Kethvar system. Her specialized ships carried equipment designed to reverse the alien conversion process and restore dead worlds to life. Beginning planetary restoration operations, she reported as her ships took position around the crystallized planet below. The process was dramatic to watch. Energy beams struck the planet's crystal surface, causing massive chain reactions that spread across continents. The alien formations cracked and dissolved, revealing green fields and blue oceans that had been preserved beneath the crystal shell. Life readings are off the charts, called her science officer. Plants, animals, entire ecosystems coming back online. But the most important discoveries were in the cities. Millions of crystallized beings were built into the planetary infrastructure, serving as living computers for the Velthak systems. Lee's crews worked frantically to extract and revive as many as possible. Colonel Kim Sang-ho led his Marines in brutal urban combat through the floating cities of the Velthak core worlds. These massive structures were like crystal hives filled with advanced technology and imprisoned populations from dozens of species. Move carefully through the residential sectors, he ordered his troops. Every wall might have families trapped inside. The fighting was unlike anything in human military history. The Velthak could reshape their city ships at will, changing corridors into traps and rooms into killing zones. But human adaptability and rage proved stronger than alien technology. Sergeant Park Hwan-ho discovered a chamber filled with recently harvested prisoners from a world called Nethka Prime. Thousands of beings were held in crystal stasis, their bodies preserved but their minds still active and aware. "Sir, you need to see this," he called to Colonel Kim. "Some of these people have been conscious for decades." The psychological horror of the discovery fueled the Marines' determination. They worked with desperate efficiency to free as many prisoners as possible before the Velthak could activate their self-destruct systems. Dr. Hong Soo-young worked around the clock aboard her hospital ships, treating rescued prisoners from dozens of different species. Each group brought new challenges as she learned to reverse crystallization effects on completely alien biologies. "The good news is that the process is reversible," she reported to Admiral Park Sung-ho. "The bad news is that many of these beings have been trapped for so long they need extensive therapy to recover. Some prisoners had been crystallized for over a century. Their civilizations had been destroyed, their worlds converted, their families processed into resources. The human medical teams became counselors as well as doctors, helping survivors cope with losses beyond imagination. Intelligence Officer Moon Jae-sung coordinated with resistance movements across Veltak space as news of human victories spread. Species that had been considered extinct began emerging from hiding places they had maintained for generations. The Kef resistance reports successful uprisings on 12 worlds, he told the command staff. The Zeltar remnants are attacking Veltak supply lines in their sector. Everyone is joining the fight. The psychological impact was devastating to Veltak morale. For 1,000 years, they had faced no meaningful resistance. Now their empire was collapsing from within as their former victims rose up to fight alongside the humans. Major Ryu Sujin led boarding parties against Veltak command ships, seeking intelligence about their operations and prisoners who might know how to reverse advanced crystallization processes. Her Marines had become experts at fighting in zero gravity while avoiding damage to trapped civilians. Every ship we take is a victory, she told her troops. Every prisoner we free is proof that these monsters can be beaten. The boarding operations revealed the true scope of Veltak crimes. Ships that looked like military vessels from outside were actually mobile prisons carrying millions of crystallized beings. Entire civilizations had been compressed into living cargo holds. Harvester Prime Kethaval watched his empire crumble from his fortress world of Velthara Prime. Reports came in every hour of new defeats, lost worlds, and freed prisoners. The humans seemed to be everywhere, striking with a fury his species had never encountered. Deploy the final protocol, he ordered his remaining commanders. If we cannot maintain our empire, we will ensure these mammals cannot enjoy their victory. The final protocol was Kethaval's ultimate weapon, a wave of crystal gas that could convert entire star systems. If activated, it would kill every living thing in Veltak space, including the billions of prisoners the humans were trying to rescue. But human intelligence had infiltrated Veltak communications. Captain Nam Yuri intercepted the final protocol, orders aboard her command ship, and immediately alerted the fleet. All ships priority alpha alert, she broadcast. The aliens are planning to kill everyone rather than lose. We need to stop them now. Admiral Park Sung-ho made the hardest decision of his career. Instead of the careful, systematic liberation they had planned, the entire Retribution fleet would attack Velthara Prime simultaneously. 700,000 ships would assault the Veltak homeworld in the largest battle in galactic history. Signal the fleet, he ordered. All ships, converge on Velthara Prime. Maximum speed, maximum firepower. We end this today. The Veltak collective began to fracture under the pressure. Some factions wanted to surrender and beg for mercy. Others called for suicidal resistance. A few tried to escape beyond the galaxy, abandoning their empire to save themselves. But there was nowhere to run. Human task forces controlled every major space lane. Resistance fighters attacked from within. The 1,000-year empire was collapsing in months. Admiral Cho Yun-hai led the advance elements toward Velthara Prime, where massive crystal structures ringed the planet like deadly jewel. The Luna shipyards had never been so busy. Master Shipwright Bae-in-Su walked through the construction bays at 5 in the morning, watching workers who had been building for 16 hours straight. Nobody complained. They all knew what would happen if they failed. How many ships today? He asked his assistant. 412 completed, sir. 700 more in various stages. Bae nodded and moved to the next bay. The numbers were incredible, but they needed to be. Every day the Retribution fleet grew larger. Humanity felt a little safer. Every day they delayed, more worlds might fall to the crystal gas. The workers came from everywhere. Farmers left their fields to weld ship hulls. Teachers put down their books to install weapon systems. Children old enough to carry tools worked alongside retired grandparents. The Luna yards ran 3 shifts around the clock, and the sound of construction never stopped. Admiral Cho Yun-hai stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the latest group of ships join the formation. The New Busan's Vengeance was one of the largest ships ever built by humans. Its guns could crack a moon, and its armor could stop anything the aliens had shown so far. Admiral, the Fury Squadron is reporting ready for duty, called her communications officer. How many ships in that squadron? 50,000, ma'am. All destroyer class. Cho Yun-hai smiled grimly. 50,000 ships in one squadron. Before the war, that would have been their entire navy. Now it was just one small part of humanity's growing rage. Technical specialist Oh Dong-min worked day and night in his laboratory, designing weapons that could crack crystal hulls. The breakthrough had come from studying music of all things. Every crystal had a frequency that would shatter it, just like a singer could break a wine glass with the right note. "Show me the test results," he said to his team. The laboratory screens showed the latest experiments. A crystal sample sat in a containment field while sound waves hit it from all directions. When the frequency matched exactly, the crystal exploded into dust. "It works on small samples," reported Dr. Kim Na-young, "but scaling it up to ship-sized weapons is proving difficult." "Then we'll make it work," Oh Dong-min said. "Those crystal ships are not magic. They're just science we haven't figured out yet." Captain Seo Ji-won led her scout ships deeper into space, mapping the route to Veltak territory. Her pilots flew the fastest, quietest ships humanity could build. They had to get close enough to gather intelligence without being detected. "Any signs of alien activity?" she asked her sensor operator. 3 Veltak ships at the edge of our range, Captain. They're patrolling the border systems. Seo Ji-won studied the tactical display. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, like they were connected by invisible strings. Human ships were more chaotic, but that might be an advantage. In combat, mark their positions and let's get out of here. Command needs to know where they are. Back on Earth, Dr. Kwon Tae-young worked with a team of scientists and musicians to crack the mystery of crystal resonance. His background teaching music had given him insights that pure scientists missed. "Every crystal sings," he explained to the weapons designers. "We just need to learn their song and then sing it back at them, but louder." The breakthrough came when they tested samples from the wreckage of Captain Kim Do-hyun's final battle. The alien crystal had a complex harmonic structure, but it was not random. There was a pattern, and patterns could be predicted. "If we can build weapons that produce exactly this frequency," Kwon said, pointing to the waveform on his screen, "their ships will tear themselves apart." Major Ryu Soo-jin trained the Marines who would board captured alien ships. Her soldiers learned to fight in zero gravity, to cut through crystal walls, and to rescue prisoners from crystal containment systems. "Remember," she told her troops during training, "the people trapped in those ships are still alive. They can think and feel, but they cannot move or speak. Our job is to free them, not to add to their suffering." The Marines practiced on mock-up ships built to match Veltak designs. They learned to move quickly through crystal corridors and to avoid the alien defense systems. Most importantly, they learned how to reverse the crystallization process. Intelligence. Officer Moon Jae-sung coordinated with resistance movements that had been discovered on several alien-controlled worlds. The news that other species were still fighting gave humanity hope and valuable allies. "The Kef survived their harvesting by hiding in deep caves," he reported to the command staff. "They've been fighting the Veltak for 30 years. They know how to hurt the crystal ships." "What do they need from us?" asked Admiral Park Sung-ho. "Weapons, mostly, and hope. They haven't seen a fleet this large in their lifetime." The production lines on Mars worked just as hard as those on Luna. Factory manager Lee Hyo-jun converted automobile plants to produce fighter ships. The workers adapted quickly, using skills learned making cars to build spacecraft instead. "We're ahead of schedule," he reported to General Song Min-ho. "The workers are putting in 20-hour days voluntarily. Nobody wants to go home while the aliens are still out there." Dr. Lim Ye-jin continued studying Veltak biology and technology. What she learned made the war more urgent. The aliens were not just conquering worlds randomly. They were following a plan. "They're surrounding human space," she explained to the Strategic Planning Committee. "Each harvested world becomes a base for attacking the next target. If we don't stop them now, they'll cut us off from escape routes." The Psychological Warfare Division, led by Dr. Yang Sung-min, developed ways to use human creativity against alien logic. The Velthak seemed to think in predictable patterns, while humans were chaotic and surprising. We need to be unpredictable, Yang explained. They've conquered 47 civilizations by following the same strategy every time. We need to do things they don't expect. Captain Nam Yuri, the survivor from New Busan, worked with the intelligence teams to identify weaknesses in Velthok tactics. Her experience escaping the crystal gas gave her insights that no simulation could provide. They assumed total victory within hours, she told the tactical planners. They're not prepared for a long fight. If we can make them work for every victory, their efficiency breaks down. The Retribution fleet grew larger every day. Supply ships carried ammunition and food to the war vessels. Hospital ships prepared to treat wounded and rescued prisoners. Engineering ships carried repair equipment and replacement parts. Admiral Park Sung-ho reviewed the final battle plans from his command ship. The strategy was simple but massive. 700,000 ships would attack Velthak space from 6 different directions simultaneously. The aliens would face more enemies than they had ever imagined possible. Are we ready? He asked Admiral Cho Yun-hai during their final planning meeting. The ships are ready. The weapons work. The crews are trained, she replied. But sir, this isn't just about military readiness. This is about whether humanity is ready to become something different. Park Sung-ho nodded. We were farmers and teachers and musicians before New Busan fell. After this war, we'll be the people who stood up to monsters. I think that's a change worth making. The final weapon tests were successful. Oh, Dongmin's crystal-cracking devices could shatter Velthak ships like glass. Quan Tae-young's resonance weapons turned enemy hulls into vibrating fragments. The aliens' greatest strength had become their greatest weakness. Colonel Park Jae-ho led the final training exercises for the assault troops. His soldiers practiced boarding crystal ships and freeing crystallized prisoners. They had rescued thousands of test subjects in simulation. Soon they would try it for real. Remember your mission priorities, he told his troops. First, secure the ship. Second, rescue the prisoners. Third, gather intelligence. Fourth, turn their weapons against them. The Retribution fleet reached its target strength of 700,000 ships exactly 18 months after New Busan fell. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Every ship carried weapons designed to crack crystal hulls. Every crew member knew they were fighting for the survival of their species. On the day before launch, President Yoon Han-neul spoke to the fleet from Earth. You carry with you the hopes of humanity and the memory of New Busan, she said. You go not as conquerors but as liberators. Bring justice to the stars and come home safely. The Retribution fleet launched the next morning. 700,000 ships turned away from human space and jumped into the darkness between stars. They carried death and liberation in equal measure. Behind them, the factories kept working. If 700,000 ships were not enough, humanity would build 700,000 more. The galaxy was about to learn why you should never threaten human children.